Hello, everybody. We are live. Fantastic. So, two notes before I start. I'm going to put the link to my WordPress site or my blog where I have the link to watch my interview with Andrew. I thought it went really well. I packed in a load of information. We did America's chart and we talked about the comeback kids, which is Boris, Sunak, and Donald Trump. Will they be back in some capacity? Kind of ruled out Boris, but you knew that as well. Talked about Rishi Sunak and his background. Jeremy Hunt came up as well. So that should be good. Now, interestingly, the first topic today was suggested by one of my subscribers. I'm just going to read what he says here, because just to kick us off. So he said, I was listening to your recent podcast and you made some interesting points about the transfer of power of the monarchy. It sounded like there were some aberrations in the process and people were upset because some of the things weren't done properly. In the US, the Biden inauguration and the few days that went after that were bizarre. He was inaugurated 13 minutes 12, which is not correct. Air Force One did not pick him up. The call signal was never correct. The gun salute at the cemetery he visited was wrong. Several other things too, and people have been picking up on it. It really makes me wonder if something similar is going on with the monarchy, and your notes about it in the podcast. That was my interview with Andrew last month, were the first I heard of it. Please put a few words in a video about this. Okay. So let's recap. So as that listener is saying, he believes that when Biden was inaugurated, because obviously we believe that there were, you're not allowed to say on YouTube, are you? But when he believed there were some aberrations, things that weren't done correctly. And what I was saying with Andrew is it was the same thing with Prince Charles. So what I said was Andrew, it's his name now, it's not Andrew, it's the guy from Eastern Approaches that comes on UK column. He used to work for GCHQ and he went to Oxford or Cambridge. I can't remember here, but he's really good on constitutional affairs. And he was saying that on the day Prince Charles was put in front of the Privy Council, the inauguration committee, which was on the Saturday, he was unclear of whether the inauguration committee and the Privy Councillors had been sworn in. Because bear in mind, Liz Truss had only taken control 2 days before. So Andrew Thompson had this question of, were the Privy Councillors all properly sworn in? Were they actually capable of swearing Charles in? Then I remembered that on that day, it's hard to forget, the media made such a big splash about it. Prince Charles had that leaky pen that made him very, very annoyed. And he got up frustrated with this pen. It's like old-fashioned fountain pen. Remember, he was pushing the ink away and gesturing for someone to come and sort it out, and he couldn't get the hang of it. And then he got up and sort of threw his toys out the trolley, and Camilla went and took the pen, and then she signed it to witness. So there were a couple of things going on there. Did he sign it? Was it legible? Why did he make such a big thing about the pen and then get up? Was it signed properly? Then he said, what's the date? Oh, damn, he said, I've been putting the wrong date on everything. Now, seems like a small thing. But when it comes to these massive constitutional matters, and I mean in most paperwork the date is important, whether you're writing your will or your tax return, these things, dates tend to be quite important. It's important to get it right. So he gets the date wrong. The pen wasn't working properly. So was the signature legible? Did he finish signing it before he handed it over to Camilla and waltzed off? Those were questions I had. Then Andrew Thompson was, I think it's Andrew, it's something with an A. It's Alex Thompson, yeah. So what Alex Thompson was also saying is his parents, because he's born in 78, right, 77, so his parents are kind of in their 70s, I would imagine. When Charles was born, they were kind of baffled at why, knowing that he was going to be the heir, Elizabeth and Philip gave him the name Charles, because when you go back in English history, Charles I was executed. There was a massive civil war going on during Charles I. Charles II was equally unlucky. The country was split down the middle between the Catholics and the Protestants, and there was all sorts of shenanigans going on. Charles I was the time, of course, of Oliver Cromwell, the English Civil War. There was the Fire of London that destroyed most of London, and then before that there'd been the plague. So why would they name him Charles, knowing that he would be the future king? Then Charles was always going to be called King George VIII, I think, because the kings and queens in England, they don't have to take their given name. They can become king, like the same with the Pope, you can become Pope Father Christmas or whatever it is. You don't have to use your Christian name. So he was always going to be King George, but as soon as the Queen died, he was being referred to as King Charles, and that shocked a lot of people because he's taking on almost this poison chalice. So that was a bit strange. Then there's this story, which I saw in the Mail, and it says here, this is about fluffed his lines. Frazzled senior herald forgot to say God save the King while reading out proclamations at the Queen's committal. Garter King of Arms, David Vines White, read proclamations at the Queen's committal ceremony. I think that was at Windsor Castle. He forgot to say God save the King. The words God save the King, despite the fact that it was written very clearly on the order of service. Sources in the royal household said they are very annoyed at him for this mistake. That seems a really big mistake. Why would you forget to say God save the King? I just wonder if these things are symbolically put in place to remove legitimacy from Charles's reign. As the other gentleman who wrote into me was saying, that similar things went on with Biden. But I wanted to add a note about Biden, because this relates to both Theresa May and Rishi Sunak as well. When Biden was running for Democrat candidate, you'll remember at one stage there were lots of different candidates. Kamala Harris, who was the least popular. There was Tulsi Gabbard. There was Michael Bloomberg, and there was some more Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke. But there was a point when Alexander Mercoulis, it's in the latest Duran video, said that Barack Obama rang them all and he told them all to step down and to give Biden a clear run. So Biden never actually had to be voted to become the Democratic candidate or the Democrat candidate, because the others just stood down. Exactly the same that happens with Sunak. Boris Johnson flies back. He's setting up his campaign committee in the Millennium building there in Parliament. He seems to be all geared up. He's cut his holiday short. He's back. He's bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. He seems to have a lot of support. He thinks he's got enough votes. All of a sudden, no, he's pulling out. And then, of course, there was a huge amount of pressure put on Penny to pull out. Now, Ray will tell you that Graham Brady, the 1922 committee, said, he had maybe 150 MPs' names. Maybe it was more like 200 supporting Sunak. And no, Boris had only had 50, hadn't cleared the 100 threshold. And Penny was battling to clear the 100 threshold. Yeah, but who knows, hey? Who knows how many Sunak had? For all we know, Boris had 200. And they're just telling us the nonsense. But there was a phone call made, and Boris was told to step aside, so was Penny. Exactly the same as Barack Obama rang the other Democrat candidates and said, step aside, it's going to be Biden. So while under the Tory party rules, this is all roughly okay, it still kind of feels odd that the choice never went back to the Tory party members. Yes, it doesn't have to go back to the electorate in general, because in the UK we elect a party, not a person. But it seems kind of odd that there wasn't even a legitimate contest, that he was just shooed in. And what Alexander Mercoulis and them were saying is, he's a yes man, he will keep to the agenda. There are certain things he's not allowed to change. For example, the war agenda, the net zero agenda, various other agendas to do with, I guess, mass immigration and things like that. So what he is a technocrat. He doesn't have support out in the country, within the electorate. He doesn't really have a mandate. He's not a populist. He's not a man of vision. He doesn't have strong support, particularly with the MPs. He's in a holding position. So he's not there to be a dynamic leader, to unite the country, to take the country forward, to do any great things, or to present a particular idea or a vision. He's just there in a holding position to keep things on an even keel. Some people suggested he's simply there to protect the interests of the super wealthy while we undergo the transition with the Great Reset. Interesting to know. But I think it's interesting to look at all these different situations and the possible moral illegitimacy of these people, or even the symbolic illegitimacy of all these leaders. So I always said like Donald Trump would be the last American president, and now that the guy who wrote in sort of reiterates that Biden's not even properly sworn in, didn't go through the proper process. I don't feel Sunak's gone through the proper process. You see, they delegitimizing our democracy, having these puppet leaders there that if people look closely can see or have got no substance, even in terms of the legitimacy of their swearing in. And all those weird things with Charles as well, the name, the pen, the date, the person not getting the stuff right there. It all seems odd. I looked at Charles's at the chart for London for 6:30. That was the time the Queen was announced as dead. So within the public consciousness, he became king at that moment. And we had Saturn and Mars, the two malefics, both on angles, right? With Moon void of course. Now, I mean, you know, that's like a whole astrological no-no in terms of electional and mundane astrology. Never. Bad. Terrible. Or very inauspicious. That it indicates a very short reign and that nothing good will come of it, really. Then I looked at the 2:30 time because it was later said that that was the time she passed. So that would have been in reality when he became king. Saturn is again on an angle. Then I had a look at that time, 11 o'clock, where he was doing the signing in front of the Privy Council. Well, Saturn was again on an angle. So each of those times, and I think that had a Scorpio ascendant as well, which also doesn't bode particularly well when you have electional astrology. So the three charts for possible times when you could look at for Charles becoming king did not look great. Now, I know other astrologers, you've told me, I never pay attention to what they're saying, said that Prince Charles won't even make his coronation. Well, I think it's possible. Pluto squaring Jupiter in the UK's 10th house, and Pluto's opposing, should I say, Jupiter, and Jupiter in Taurus will be Jupiter in the last degrees. Well, I think May, has Jupiter just gone into Taurus? Yeah, Jupiter's squaring Jupiter as well, which is in the first degree of Leo in the UK chart. So it looks like he could, but whether he lasts, after that for more than a year, the jury's out. So wasn't it strange, though, that they were saying over the last few days that Harry and Andrew are going to stand in for Charles on royal duties? Isn't it odd? I thought that Andrew was definitely out. I thought that Charles was slimming down the royal family, and I thought there was a big rift with Harry, and Harry didn't want to do royal duties, and he was doing his thing in America. But suddenly they were telling us Harry and Andrew are going to help out with Charles. Stand in for the king? It sounds highly irregular. I think they're just putting this news out to baffle, confuse, bewilder people so that people wonder if anything they hear is correct. It's like every day is April Fool's Day now, and they're doing it to further demoralize you, weaken you, and make you just want to give up so you accept everything. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope I covered all those things. Sorry I couldn't remember that guy's name, Alex Thompson. Don't forget to watch my show on Andrew. I'll put the link below. And yeah, I'm working very hard at the moment to finish all my projects in terms of the horoscopes book. If you're interested, go to Amazon, Lisa Lazuli. You can look up Taurus, Aries, and Gemini. I finished those books for the horoscopes for 2023. And I'm trying to do a big book of world predictions. I want it finished before I'm next on Andrew's show. But it's a hell of a thing. I've done quite a lot of countries already, and it's more than 10,000 words in. So I'm sure I should finish it. But that's a big project for me, and at these pivotal times there's such an enormous amount to say. I'd love to get it finished. So guys, I hope you're having a good Friday. If there's anyone I haven't got back to, I don't usually check my Facebook page for messages because I don't get a lot there. If there's anyone I haven't got back to, I'm not ignoring you. I'm really not. It's just like time is going so quickly, and it's a mad rush at this time of year to get everything going. So God bless you all. Take care.